All right, anybody who's remote, who has not presented,
I haven't.
okay, and are you ready?
I believe so.
Okay. We may actually finish today, so I just want to make sure everybody has a chance to present. So. All right. Well, since I have Steve R's in front of me,
And it's mailed in too.
all right. Let's start with you. So, why don't you introduce yourself and your organization?
My name's Steve Rutenbar, and I'm myself retired, but I chose an organization that actually has a couple of names. I originally knew it as Global Operations and Development, and then it's gone through a transition that is now using a rebranded name that actually tells kind of what they do, and that's called Giving Children Hope. And that's the organization. If you'd like me to go into the.
Yeah, I just want to see if I can find it.
It would
Under
be-
the old name or the new
Yeah,
name?
under Global Operations and Development would be.
As opposed to Giving Children Hope, which is some other organization. Nope, looks like it is Giving Children Hope
Okay,
with an O as
sorry.
opposed to
New name, old name, I think legally they didn't erase the old name.
yeah, it's
so.
just a DBA or something. All right, so tell us about the organization, why you picked it.
I picked it because I thought it had there was some richness to the discussion around it, rather than it being kind of for me a slam dunk. There were some questions that I had experientially years ago. When it was under when it was under Global Operations and Development, I probably sent 6 containers through them, through their international portion around the world. But they were in that, I really want to be fair to them, but they were, I would describe a mom and pop operation.
Okay.
Through the last year.
A mom pop operation with 34 million in gross receipts.
Well, we'll address that on the 990. So, yeah, that's
is
another
some mom
anomaly.
and some
No,
pop.
that's another, hey mom, hey pop, write me a check. Okay, so as I approached this, I recalled that I myself had backed away from this. Again, not about malfeasance, but just that it was interesting how in the way they operated, it was kind of the way a mom and pop operates, and not really efficient as I super needed it to be.
Okay.
So, but then I think really coolly, they went through this thing called kind of founder's syndrome. If anybody's heard of that, I won't waste my time, but it's a very interesting, intriguing thing that I've seen happen in a lot of churches, and basically what it is the founder so much does not want to lose his organization and not step back, that he actually hurts the future of the organization by holding it so tightly and keeping future leaders from both learning along the way or having in line a good plan for what's going to happen after he or she leaves. And so people write, I mean, this is Harvard Business Reviews and all this about founder's syndrome. But you see it a lot. In Orange County, think Reverend Schuler and that whole thing there. He refused to address kind of what's going to happen after me, and then it became a debacle. That's not the case in Giving Children Hope, but on a micro level, it really was that. I can say, I'm happy to say I've done quite a bit of work with them since then. Since they've reorganized, they got rid of all their past board against not bad people. They established a new board, and in one of my addendums here on their annual report, it has their new board or their newer board, Steve and others. I added their annual report in here. And I'm happy to say these are guys like they've got a guy who's an executive with PIMCO.
Hmm.
They've got, retired, military people, they had a lot of management. I would say, as much as they were known as a mom and pop, they have turned that corner and really care about the governance now. We can talk about that later in this, or, right now, like, they have,
So
and
what
I
is it
also-
that they do? What's their?
Okay, let me just, if it's okay, I'm gonna just read that part from their, they have a real clear dashboard that I included that do their vision statement. And rather than me characterizing it, here we go. Rather than me characterizing it, I can just read it to you. And the first, their vision statement is short and concise. And not on this page, sorry. I'm sorry.
Wellness for, here, you can read it.
Right here.
Yeah.
Right here, Steve.
Okay, it just says, their vision statement is wellness for vulnerable children and families. That takes a lot of discipline to narrow your vision statement down to 6 words, and one of them is an and. Their mission statement, which is distinctly different, is giving children hope is a faith-based partner providing sustainable hope through wellness programs and disaster responses in collaboration with local and global communities. And so then, kind of how do they do that? You can put into 3 categories, both basic needs, that's basic needs of children and families. When you're serving kids, you're serving families too. And then nutritional foods, and then also through medical resources, those 3 things. And they encompass through those both the strategy here in Orange County and locally, and then they have a global and international. I traveled internationally with their CEO. He makes $74,000 a year, which is well under other things, but maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. That's more on the 990.
Okay.
So.
All right, so, what'd you find? Well, let's take a look at what's.
Well, you immediately identified that 34 million, and that kind of freaked me out. I forget exactly what our cap was, but it certainly was the easy reports. We don't want to be doing a lot of them, and whether it was 20 million or whatever. So I kind of started digging down with some of those tools you guys gave me,
Yeah,
and
I'm
I
gonna-
discovered that
I'm gonna jump down to the.
Gibson
revenue
College.
page. Yeah, well, they've got it, it's interesting, they have it in the right spot in the form that
Yeah.
you gave me, and they have it in the wrong spot in the form that's up here. So
yes.
what you'll notice, team, is that all this medical supplies, they've shown up as program service revenue, like they charged for it,
Mhm.
and that's not right.
It's not right, and the person who filled this out was part of the old mom and pop organization, and wonderful, dear person, I won't say lady or man, but had kind of come along and they had hired him, and then last year they actually had to replace her, or now 2 years ago, and there were a couple other embarrassing for them, like when I read this online, I just called them and asked them, can I come down and just sit with you guys and talk about these? I'm taking this class at Giving University, and I'm also myself like to hear and see what your responses were. They didn't say, no, another day. They go, come on up today, man. You just come up and sit. And just that response was very non-defensive. Unlike me, I'm a real defensive guy. I'd like to know, well, why do you, yeah, what do you mean? So.
Yeah, well, it's it's listed that they have a paid CPA who did it, but
Yeah.
apparently she's not.
She's neither paid or CPAing
She's paid
anymore.
too much or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because that, and also the instructions, the new guy goes, well, this isn't like rocket science. It says right here, employees who make
Right.
under 100,000 or
Right.
whatever that was.
Yeah.
And she didn't list them. And
Right.
so they went back actually to me the other day and they showed me their ledgers and their stuff. I didn't include that
Cool.
in here today because I didn't think it was appropriate me for, but I sure answered for myself. And the top guy, his name is Sean Warren, and he's been responsible. I would say in the secular world, this would be called a turnaround. You know, you buy kind of an undervalued stock or business, and you start like saying, what's not good here? What's killing us here? And then you build from there, and maybe you can turn it around. I'm comfortable that they kind of turned around. They were cool.
Good, good. Yeah, and again, we never say no to an organization because they don't know how to fill out the form, as long as
Yeah.
we have an idea of
This is a
what's
classic.
behind the
She
form.
just poorly filled out the form.
Yeah.
And, but guess what? You did say, call the people and say that. And so they printed up their 990 on that. And it wasn't that they discovered it that day, but they were sitting there with me and they go, you know, they're looking at each other and they're going, man, look at this. People
Yeah.
are reading this and looking at us and looking like we're fools.
Right,
So,
right. It's embarrassing.
this is all real, probably, when I say fools, you know,
Yeah.
these guys are hardly fools. but-
Right. Good, okay. So again, we look at this page and it says 32 million in program service revenue. That 32 million should go up here
Yes.
at the top. So in their follow-on year form, which is not on the webpage that I'm looking at, they've done that right, and their program service revenue is 400,000
Yes.
as opposed to 32 million.
So knowing
Much
that,
more in line.
I had a question that I just need more education on. When you're talking about ratios
Mhm.
and stuff, which is kind of one of the criteria we're looking at, would you say, Steve, and others that are listening in, that it's a better thing to compare the expenses, you know, the real expenses, I forget the exact term, versus that 32 million?
Yeah,
Or
we
should you
typically
compare it-
pull it out.
Okay, yeah.
We understand
Give some time
that.
to get rid of that.
Well, we understand that, you know, part of fundraising is trying to get organizations to give up their gifts in kind.
Yes, yeah.
So
And their thing, food and those things are a big part of this. It's not like they're giving some flaky deals. It's a part of the, I'd call it currency of what they're giving to people. So I just didn't know, is the better comparison, it's ridiculously low if you compare it against 32 million.
Right.
But I would say, what do you feel about, how does it stand when you just take all that off the table and just compare it against their other stuff?
Yeah, so, like, if you look up on the screen, you'll see that they shipped 31.5 million dollars worth of gifts in kind out.
Yeah.
Their total expenses were 32.7 million. So if I subtract the whole 31.4, I'm left with 1.3 million. And if I look at that 1.3 million and say, well, they spent 565,000 in management, that, you know, makes it look like they're 50% management. But again, part of management is managing that gifts in kind. So you have to balance everything.
It's gigantic warehouses, you
Yeah.
know, it's gigantic forklifts and getting
It
that
must
stuff
be because their
around.
interest expense is $152,000
You know what? I didn't encounter that, but,
in this, and so
yeah.
we'd have to look and see.
I would say maybe they own the building then. Is there another place you could look in where interest,
That's interest paid though, it's not, so, looks like they have,
they'd be super open to me asking that, you know, after this point.
yeah, so, you know, in an advanced, you know, things that I don't necessarily have you guys look at, but it, you know, it looks like they've got a piece of land for, $2.8 million that,
It's probably the
that's the
warehouse
mortgage,
stuff.
yeah, that they have, but they have this weird thing that says inventories for sale or use, and I'm assuming that's just the inventory of the gifts in kind itself.
Yes.
Stuff that hasn't gone out, so that becomes part of their assets. So it does show that they have a $2.3 million mortgage. But for a $2.3 million mortgage, 115,000 is what, 5%?
May I say that that may be part of getting rid of the old,
Okay,
older mom and the pop?
got it.
You're right, yeah,
Yeah, we'll have to see what it's like next year.
okay.
Yeah. It's, you know, going forward, we would wanna see better use of, you know, donations other than paying interest
Yes.
on a giant warehouse. You know, in some cases, you're better off renting,
Yeah.
but,
So like, in other words, if they inherited this place that they already own, they're better selling maybe that asset off in Orange County and making.
yeah, they may make a
They're off Commonwealth right over here.
Yeah,
in-
they might sell it and lease it back and
Yeah.
make better use of the money.
Well, can I say, that's also another thing that you see in here. They employed, oddly, or not oddly, coolly enough, a guy that may be on the broadcast right now, Steve Kamanapali, who's in this class,
Mhm.
helped walk them, then their new board through a 2016-17 annual operating plan. And from that, they created this,
A new budget.
well, yeah, and this, what would you call it?
Dashboard.
What?
Dashboard.
Yeah, a dashboard thing, and it just keeps in front of them, like what we're doing this year. Steve Kamanapali from our group guided them through for nothing, you know, no charge, just
Oh,
part
that's
of
pretty
his coolness. And so, I didn't, by the way, this isn't an ad for Kamanapali, because you still have big faults, so like, I won't bring them up here. And you've learned them all from Dave Holden, who's probably on here too. Anyway, I absolutely didn't know any of this going into it, and they go, "Oh, this guy Steve Kamanapali," and I go, "Yeah, I know Steve, he's in this class with me," and all this stuff. Anyway, good.
All right,
So-
well, I appreciate, the presentation.
I feel good
and,
about it.
uh,
And I would use them
The
myself.
board will review.
Yeah, I would use them in the future, because it was kind of last.
Cool. My other issue with, this particular 990, just FYI,
Yes,
they put domestically and abroad and disaster relief and health and community development all under one code here. It doesn't help me know how much is domestic, how much is global, how much is disaster relief, how much is poverty related.
can I
And-
address some of that just anecdotally real quick, because they feed 3,000 children a week in Orange County through the elementary school program. They call it, "We've Got Your Back," and there's an addendum in there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I couldn't get those to be sent to, is it Mary Ann,
Michael?
Michael Ann, I'm sorry, on there, but so I gave
Yeah,
this.
no,
and
that's fine.
You guys
That's
have
fine.
filed it.
But, you know, if you end up talking to them again,
Yeah.
just, you
Put
know,
those
tell them
out
that,
there.
on this page, when you lump all of the expenses under one thing, and it's clear that you've got 4 different missions,
Yeah,
it would help the
Break 'em out.
readers understand how big is each one of those 4 chunks in relation to the effort that you're putting into it and the goods and services that are passing through it.
yeah.
That would help us. All right.
But
Thank you,
I've
Steve.
seen, and they're one big on the international side, and I'd like to talk to you, not take any more time on this, but off record, I think there's a real value to a container. Our Africa trip this summer is gonna have, or already has, a container landed from them that has meds, medical supplies, and relief supplies in it. And the benefit for our team that's gonna be going is we'll get to see, not just hear people that know, oh, they're coming on next Tuesday, let's put on our best song for the group and all that. We're gonna get to see them distribute these items and see if they have the capacity for it, if they really, you know, some of these groups, they get stuff, these groups, some people have a tend to hoard stuff, and they go, we'll give it out some for you right now, but we're gonna just hold it for, no, it was
No.
given for now, and if you can't show that you can give it out right now, then I'd rather give it to 5 people than, you know, to you, so.
That's good.
I
Yeah.
think for future teams, containers and stuff. would be good.
Speaking of trips, since it came up, I'll give you a little bit of a trip update just from what's in my head, which is only 80% accurate, but I believe that Kenya, Philippines, and Uganda are all full at this point. Serbia and Ukraine are getting there. Jordan's pretty wide open. Again, there's no requirement that you take a trip this year. If none of those call to you, you'll be on the list, and we'll be doing the trips for next year. We did get some feedback that we did so many trips in September, October that the people that needed to do it during summer vacation only had Kenya to choose from, and so we'll try to take that into account when we do the following year's trips to make sure that we have more trips during the summer vacation, non-school time frame. So, any questions on trips? You should be hearing, if you did sign up for a trip, you should be hearing from your trip leader pretty soon. Remember, once you commit to a trip and we buy your plane ticket, you're going, or you're writing us a check. So you can come to an exploratory meeting. I talked to the trip leader for Uganda, and they're like, well, gosh, I want to make sure everybody knows that this trip is not for the faint of heart. There's going to be blood, sweat, and tears, and snakes, and and so there'll be a meeting where everyone who signed up for Uganda will get to hear,
what
the
you're
good, the
getting
bad,
into.
and the ugly,
Yeah.
and get a chance.
On those
to
team
have
meetings,
that.
Dan helped us with kind of setting there's a Facebook message communication tool that we can actually speak, kind of just either at the very very least, kind of email each other or message each other, but on a more sophisticated level, we haven't really tested yet, can kind of meet together. So Veronica and Dee and Mark and Brian are, Danny's been helpful. That's kind of his thing, I think,
Yeah,
IT.
the technology stuff. Yeah.
I would expect that of you, Danny. You
Yeah,
don't get
those-
paid extra for
Those
that.
IT guys. Those IT guys. Okay. All right. Cool. Well, I was thinking we'd finish today, but I guess we're not. So what we'll do is finish. Great discussion, though. We'll finish Module 5 today, and someone will teach you Module 6 next week. I am going to be roughing it in Reykjavik next week. So doing a personal vacation. So I will miss you guys next week. All right, we've been talking about personal finances, and we talked about sort of this checking account mentality or credit card mentality that says, hey, if there's money available, I must be able to afford it. There's also this very common mindset that says, I've gone beyond that. I just want to make sure that I spend less than I make. And while that in and of itself is great, what you end up getting stuck in is talking to realtors, talking to car salesmen, and the first question that they ask is, how big a payment can you afford? Which is the wrong question. It's the right question for them. It's the wrong question for you. If you are car shopping, your goal should be, what's the right size car for me that makes sense for me? Not how much car can I afford, therefore I'm going to keep going bigger and bigger and cooler and more features until I, hit my dollar amount that's in my head. As you get further along, you will discover that generally payments aren't a good thing at all. So finding how big a payment you could possibly have is sort of the wrong question. It's really, how quickly can I pay this thing off? So if you can afford $500, then, you know, find a car that, you know, you can get with a 2-year loan and get it paid off and be done. So, what are the consequences of living life without a focus on finances? You know, one of the things that we've discovered in teaching this thing is generally people just don't want to think about it. And they're like, you know, do you spend more than you make? I don't know. You know, when will you be debt free? What's debt free? And why would I care? Our country is never going to be debt free. Why should I be? But where does that take you? It makes you dependent on continuing to try to earn more and more, or gain more and more, and all of a sudden you get to be, you know, my age, and all of a sudden thinking about, well, gosh, you know, I won't be able to work for the next, you know, 100 years, you know, if I better start focusing on finances, you know, that, and if it's your mid-50s when you're starting to think about it, you know, you're going to have a miserable 10 years ahead of you. So the best time to be thinking about focusing on financing is when you're young and single. Okay? So those of you that are young and single, that's the time to start socking money away.
So Matt, last time you'll have money is young and single.
Because it grows for a long time. You'll get to the point where your investments are making more than you are, and that's fun. So, tongue in cheek, I call this common ways to the top 10 ways to waste money. Number one is if you're paying the bank anything, that's, you know, there's no reason not to have entirely free checking. It's almost like, well, I have to keep $250 in the bank. It's like, okay, keep $250 in the bank. If it's costing you $12 a month, you know, do the math. Super high interest, signature loans, credit card loans, a lot of second mortgages. Most common way is replacing perfectly good items with newer, cooler items. Just because you walk through Costco and you see the 4K TV and the, you know, new eye this and eye that and all that kind of stuff. So, paying someone else to do what you're perfectly capable of doing when you can't really afford to. You know, there may be a stage in your life where you, you know, choose to spend money on some luxuries. You may, you know, get a housekeeper once in a while, or a pool guy, or whatever. I choose not to change my own oil because I can, you know, first of all, I have a plug-in hybrid, so I don't trust myself or Walmart or Jiffy Lube to do it. You know, I only trust Ford to do it. But even when I didn't have one, you know, to me that was worth it, you know. However, I work in a company where, you know, guys are dealing with engines every day, and they're perfectly capable of changing their oil, and they do. And that's just a decision you'll have to make. But if you can't afford to do it, you shouldn't be doing it.
Is there an underlying question like, what is your time worth? Does that ever come into play at a certain point?
It's a bit of a myth.
Is it?
Because it's really, what is your weekend time worth?
True.
Yeah.
The lawyer isn't billing out
Yeah, you know, I
at
used
$500 an hour.
when I was a software consultant, and you know, and I could charge $125 an hour, and I said to myself, well, if I was working all weekend
Yeah.
then it's better for me to work for an hour than to do this, but it's a
I
bit
had
of a
this
mess.
conversation with my wife, and I'll try throwing that out there. What's my time worth? And she goes, why does he always overvalue your net worth and undervalue what I do every day?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's a bit of a mess.
Steve, what is signature loans?
What is what?
Signature loans?
Signature loans is when you go to the bank and say, I wanna borrow money and I have no collateral, I just, wanna use my good looks to borrow money. I get 3 or 4 envelopes in the mail every day
yeah.
of,
Citibank.
consolidate your debt. And I think we do it. I may have pulled that exercise out of this. We'll see if we get to it. But yeah, signature loan is borrowing money without collateral. Lottery tickets, a tax on people who are bad at math. And it's sadly, you look at the demographics of the people that buy scratchers. It's the people that can't afford dinner
Right.
that are buying scratchers. It's just.
And they take 10 minutes to pick out different tickets right when you're in a hurry and line behind trying to pay for a coffee or something.
Trying to buy your oil so you can change your oil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
It's if the state is doing it, and a third of the money is going to education theoretically,
For the children.
It's for the
all
children. Then at best they're returning 2/3 of the money, but they're spending at least 10% of the money to fund the program itself.
Yeah.
So they're returning half the money. And if it says 10 million, it's not really 10 million, because there's a 10 million paid over the next 40 years, or you can get the cash value, which is less than half that, and then they tax it, which is less than half that.
And look at the miserable people who win that money. That's.
And the statistics on people, the lottery winners that still have money after 5 years,
It's like NBA guys who still
Yeah.
have their contracts after.
scary. So, even if you're bad at math or good at math, do me a favor and pick a different habit than buying lottery tickets. It's easy to buy a $30,000 car. Just buy a $20,000 car with 6 monthly payments. 60. I used to say 50,000, but somebody called me out on the math. So I didn't make up the quote, but I've changed the math since you can get car loans pretty cheaply these days. Here's that debt reduction myth. So you have $10,000 in credit card debt caused by overspending $500 a month, and you get a debt reduction loan for $10,000 at 9% plus $100 in fees. So on the day you do your debt reduction loan, how much less debt do you have? You don't have less debt.
Zero.
You have more debt because you had to spend $100 to do it. Okay? All you did was move money from one bucket to another bucket. Okay? Now, look at what's causing the problem. The problem is caused by overspending $500 a month. If you don't cut up your credit card and you continue to have this problem, where will you be in 20 months?
Court.
You will have your $10,000 debt reduction loan plus $10,000 in new credit card debt because you've been overspending. So the debt reduction loan is a marketing tool for people that want to loan you money through signature loans, essentially. Okay? They make money. Okay? If you say, well, yeah, it cuts my interest rate in half, it's not the interest That's the problem. It's the debt that's the problem. And the overspending that's the problem. So you're way better off saying, okay, instead of overspending 500, I need to underspend by 500. And I need to attack that debt by putting $500 into it. So then instead of 20 months going from $10,000 to $20,000, I'm going from $10,000 down to Zippo. That's the debt reduction. The debt
Smallest
reduction
debt
is
first, and,
yeah, you can snowball it with smallest debt first. At this point, it was interesting. I was at church yesterday, and pastor goes, people keep asking me, what version of the Bible should I be reading? My answer is, whatever version you would read, that's the version you should be reading. Okay? How should I reduce debt? Whatever method's going to cause you to do it, that's the method you should do. I don't care if it's the lowest, debt amount or the highest interest rate. That's not the issue. The issue is what will get you to do it. So that's the big thing. So if the required payment is reduced from $200 to $100 a month, then it's just going to take you longer to pay it off, right? You may overspend only $400, but you're also taking longer to pay off the debt, and you're going to increase your debt if you don't cut up your credit cards. So I think we've kind of gone through all this at this point. I have a long parable here. Man was going on a journey and called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. To one he gave 5 bags of gold, to another 2 bags, to another 1 bag, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. The man who had received 5 bags of gold went at once, put the money to work, and gained 5 bags more. So the one that had 2 bags of gold gained 2 more, but the one who had received 1 bag went off, dug a hole, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master came back and said, settled accounts. The man with 5 bags said, you've entrusted me with 5, see, I've gained 5 more. The master replied, well done. You have been faithful with a few things. I'll put you in charge of many things. Come share in your master's happiness. The man with 2 bags said, Master, you entrusted me with 2 bags. I've gained 2 more. Master replied the same. Well done. Come share in your master's happiness. The man with 1 bag said, Master, I knew you were a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown, gathering where you have not gathered seed. So I was afraid, and I went out and hid your bag of gold in the ground. See, here it is back to you. His master replied, you wicked, lazy servant. So you knew that I was this kind of guy. You should have at least put my money on deposit with the bank so that when I returned, I would have received it back with interest. So take the bag of gold from him and give it to the one that has 10 bags. So, the secret to these stories, this is my mantra, okay? The main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. Okay? In other words, don't create dogma, doctrine, theology over a small part of a story. Okay? Try to figure out what the main part of the story is and take from that. Okay? There's no perfect analogy. I went to see The Shack, the movie The Shack over the weekend, and I thought it was incredible. But I talked to somebody else who wanted to pick it apart. It's like, dude, it's a story. Learn from it, gather from it, don't...
It's literature, not scripture.
So, anyway. So let's talk about what are the main things here. What's the main lesson that you get from the story?
Get a return on your investment?
Whatever you've been given, make the most of it. Right? Don't squander it away. Don't bury it in the ground. Okay?
reward comes with risk. I mean, the two guys.
In this
took
case,
a risk.
reward comes from hard work.
Yes, yes. But in working hard, they
May or may not be
the
risk.
middle guy could have said, "You gave me the 2 bags, I lost it. Sorry, you
Yeah.
know, but at least I didn't bury it. At least I gave it a try." So
Yeah.
I don't know which of those he would have rewarded.
I don't know. I don't want to dig into the story more than it's there.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's the main thing. The second thing is
Try.
that different people got different amounts. Okay? And the question, is that fair, has no answer. It doesn't matter whether it's fair or not. There's no such thing as fair. Okay? The issue is, what are you doing with what you got? Okay? So no matter whether you're a guy with 5 or a guy with 2 or a person with 1, okay, that's not the point. The point is, what are you doing with what you have? So please think about that as you're determining whether or not this applies to you. That's the message. Everyone had a chance to do something with what they were given. Cool. So for those of you that want to learn more about personal finances, I've put up a couple of authors and at least one of their books. They have all written multiple books, but if you want a specific one, you can grab any one of those. We also have a lending library of Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University. Dave is hilarious. I will send you guys that link. We'll figure out the technology that allows me to play videos during class. But in the meantime, I'll send you that. But again, he's hilarious. He makes personal finances funny. And his ideas are, I don't want to say simple because that sound has a negative connotation, but they're very straightforward and easy steps to understand, not necessarily easy steps to implement, because we all have our habits and habits are hard to break. But if you are interested in checking out, in a library sense, in checking out one of the copies that we have of our Financial Peace University, just send an email to Michael Ann and we'll figure out how to get it to you. And then you can go through that. There's a series of DVDs in the thing, and there's a booklet in there. Don't write in the booklet, write your own personal notes on your own personal piece of paper so that we can continue to lend it out. If you put your personal finances in there, then you're about to share them with the next person that gets the library. So you really don't want to do that. If your issue is, I don't know what to do, then listen to Dave Ramsey's podcasts. He's got an app that has no commercials. You can listen to his, basically it's a call-in radio show that he does for 3 hours a day. But out of that 3 hours, an hour of it's commercials if you're listening to it on the radio. So the 2-hour version.
He's got to monetize it too, so
Oh, yeah.
sustainability.
It is not a nonprofit. I can tell you that. But you know,
Zondervan or whoever published.
the people that are generous are the ones that deserve to make money. You know, so you know, he's a very generous person, so I don't have a problem with him making money. But he's not going to make any more money out of us because we've created a lending library, and we make that available to you guys. So, all right, gang, thanks for joining us this week. Next week will be your final lesson, and I don't know who your teacher will be, but somebody will.